Welcome to the Rotary Club of Edina, the #1 club in the universe. My name is Michael Stanzak, and I'm humbled and honored to serve as your 67th president. Thank you. Thank you, Sam Thompson. You prepared me well. And just Tim Murphy and Josh Sprague and everybody else that keeps pushing me up to make me look better. Thank you for coming out on this very cold Minnesota winter day. As you know, February is Black History Month. There is no history without African American history, says Sarah Clark Kaplan, Executive Director of the Anti-Racist Research and Policy at American University in Washington, D.C., where my parents, Barbara and Adam, happened to go to college. Supporters have long argued that Black history should be taught and celebrated year-round, not just 1 month a year. At the Rotary Club of Edina, we do this with various events, such as the Progressive Dinner held last month at several Black-owned restaurants in the heart of Minneapolis. You will hear other inspiring projects and a lot more about Black history today. We have a very interesting meeting planned with my dear friend and very good customer, Frank White. Frank wrote the book, They Played for the Love of the Game, a book that shares stories of the African-American ball players in Minnesota from the 1870s to the 1960s. We're so very appreciative of having Frank join us today. Thank you, Frank. We're so glad you're here. Enjoy your lunch. He has an outstanding son-in-law named Quentin Moore that some of you know that I had the pleasure of working with and being at his wedding. He has an adorable granddaughter named, well, her name is Charlotte, but she goes by Charlie. So, thank you all members and guests for being here. And for those of you on Zoom, we love you Zoomers. We're so glad you're there. Gordy, I hope you're there. It was great seeing you last night. And again, we have made the decision to continue Zooming through the month of February. And who knows, Fred, we might even be Zooming into the month of March. We'll see how it goes. Our first member spotlight today is on Carlin Padiachi and his 2 children, Anya, who is 7, and Axel, who is turning 5. They're having a great time skating, I think, at the Chaska Ice Center or something like that. Our next member spotlight is on Evan Benarat, who is a junior playing basketball for the Randolph Rockets. And you can clearly see he gets his basketball acumen from his mother, Jennifer Benarat. So, our next member spotlight is on Lindsey Smaka, that's Lindsey with an I, and Shelley Lowbrook celebrating Shelley's birthday. Isn't that a great picture? Shelley, are you happy with that picture? Oh, but wait, Shelley, there's more. And then we have Jennifer Hendrickson, Kayla Beeler, next year's co-gala guest, and Julie Westbrook celebrating Shelley's birthday. And then there's a bunch of friends celebrating Shelley's birthday at the North Loop. I thought I knew how to celebrate a birthday. Clearly I don't. I don't know. And then there's Julie Westbrook, past president Josh Sprague, and Lindsey Smaka celebrating Shelley's birthday again. But there's more! Don't forget Susan Stiles and her husband, Jeff Robbins, celebrating Shelley's birthday. What a great event. Okay, a little more serious note. Rotary in the news. Our president, Shakir Mata's motto this year is serve to change lives. And that's what we do here at the Rotary Club of Edina. And the funny thing is, you don't have to go around the world to make a difference. Sometimes you can just do it in your own backyard. So please welcome our public image chair, Katy Campbell, and her husband to the podium. Katy is such a rock star, and much like Jody Kern, she does so much behind the scenes and gets so little recognition. So we're so fortunate to have Katy here. Come on up.
It's a team effort, Team Campbell. Thank you, Michael. Welcome, everybody, guests. And we got at least one project member joining us on Zoom. John, welcome, possibly Suzanne. So Lake Street Council, Rotary Partnership Project. Wanted to give you a little history of that and an overview of what's happening. So take yourself back to Minneapolis on May 25th, 2020, then May 27th through 29th. First, we watched the broadcast of a man, George Floyd, being murdered while under arrest. Then we watched a unique part of our metro area, Lake Street, unexpectedly burned, looted, and destroyed by the civil unrest. Watching these events unfold on TV at home, Rotarian Suzanne Kochever went through stages of disbelief as many people did. What was happening? Shock was followed by fear, sadness, and anger, and soon she was thinking about others. The business owners impacted, and watching their livelihoods being destroyed in their stores, literally going up in flames. Their employees, how do they get money for food? All these questions came to mind. Meanwhile, all this was going on top of a world where we were in the thick of the pandemic at the time. So that how can I help question really began to nag at Suzanne. Lake Street had a special place in her heart because her brother lives there, and he raised his family there. Quickly, Suzanne realized she had Rotary. She's a member of the Excelsior Morning Rotary Club and a past president. So she turned to them, and a plan was hatched. Lake Street Council, long the leading champion of local businesses, were where Rotary turned to see where they could get some assistance. Executives at Lake Street appreciated that offer, but said it would be months before they could get in discussion with Rotary. They had a few things on their hands at the moment. So Suzanne stayed in touch and began sharing commercial cleaners and other resources because we're all business people and we have connections. So we offered these up to Lake Street business owners. Fast forward to August of 2020, and then District Governor Tom Gump agreed to help and get on board. Suddenly we had 14 Rotary clubs interested from our district. With Lake Street Council's help, a questionnaire was filled out and some pairing began of Rotary clubs with the businesses. This is my first time through on this, so bear with me, thank you. Our clubs work with their business partners to determine what help they need. This can vary from immediate to longer term needs. Recovery and sustainability of successful business is the shared goal. This happens in a variety of ways, from sharing skills and labor to purchase and provision of products. Each club has a designated point person and meetings are arranged. It's not without setbacks. Trust of the partners needs to be earned over time and not expected. A mix of languages and cultural customs needs to be navigated for an understanding to take place. Pacing is on each business owner's time, not Rotary's. The COVID-19 pandemic adds additional stress, as we all know. Highlights so far. So we held an open house at all the 8 locations of the business partners. Rotary arranged for TV and print media to be on hand. And we got Mayor Fry to show up, and he had actual conversations with each of the 8 business owners. He wanted to hear their concerns, and actually gritty details came out of what went on. They spared no. This woman, Vanessa, had told about how her family took residence in their fashion shop. They do high-end formal wear. They took residence in there to fend off any looters or anyone. They were prepared. Well, that help has happened. I wanted to talk about our business. Insurance audits have been done. There's been construction consultations, tutorials on QuickBooks, social media and website assistance. This is all to these business partners. Parties have been held at partnering restaurants, and their food has been catered to outside businesses. New signage and furniture has been provided, and friendships have been formed. So here are, we're going to go through the list of our wonderful business partners. Elmore Fashion is sponsored by Eden Prairie AM Rotary Club. Healing Path Wellness Services specializes in delivery of mental health and wellness services and support for children and adults in the Lake Street neighborhood area. Rotary project partner is Excelsior Morning Rotary. La Loteria Market is a business which has since closed its deli and market storefront, but because we had the relationship, the conversations continue with the owner, family members considering other options. Rotary partner is Minneapolis City of Lakes. Then we have La Michoacana Perpeca, and these offer specialty popsicles, ice cream, and related projects. Really good stuff. They were, it's like state fair quality. that they're going to be branding. You're going to see more of this. Stop by. Rotary Club partner is Minneapolis South Rotary Club. Los Andes Latin Bistro, specializes in South American cuisine from Ecuador, Peru, and Colombia. The Rotary Club partner is Uptown Rotary Club. And I'd like to wave your hand. Andrew Ramirez is with us today from Uptown Rotary Club, helping out. Amazing food, and this was a building that was burned. Actually, was just set for reopening when the unrest happened, and they got burned and had to rebuild. But they are going on strong. And that actually, this picture, I was there at Thanksgiving. They contacted Rotary because they wanted to donate some Thanksgiving meals. They opened their restaurant at 7:30 in the morning, and so they could get rolling and provide that. And they went to a local charity. Midori's Floating World Cafe specializes in Japanese cuisine. Burned out of their original location, the cafe is temporarily sharing space inside the Seward Cafe, which you may know. So they're continuing to offer food for takeout and delivery while the owners are planning to relocate. Rotary Club partner, Minneapolis 9. Pineda Tacos Plus specializes in Mexican cuisine. Rotary Club partner is Minneapolis number 9. Number 9 downtown, a larger club, is doing 2 businesses presently. And here's our club sponsoring Post Plus Inc. Many of us have met and made a nice friendship with Amina Osman, the owner. She's come to our gala, loved dancing, loves disco music, just saying, so she's a lot of fun. Pack and Ship, retail business in the Minnehaha Plaza, kind of at the east end of Lake Street. And actually, she has an exciting arrangement that we've been working with her, with a Rotarian in Minneapolis, to do some business of shipping of high-end consigned items. So, quite exciting. Soul Travel is Edina Morningside Club, and this is a money transfer agency serving the Spanish-speaking community. And they are, Edina Morningside has arranged for some furniture and new signage there. So how can you help, you may wonder. This is a screenshot from our club runner, our district page, District 5950, how you can help. You can join us in this ongoing effort with your special skills, trade connections, expertise. That's what we need and appreciate. And we're able to get our own page on our district website. So please visit that and know that we love Lake Street and we're open for business. Thank you.
Thank you, Katy, for putting that together. And thank you so many Rotarians that helped in intangible ways. Brad Hepp, I know you were here. I mean, you know a lot about insurance. Sandy Schley did a lot to coordinate it. I mean, it was so much a group effort by so many Rotarians to truly make a difference on Lake Street. Rotary birthdays this month. Deidre Cavell, Sue Parrott, Becky Mikowski, the lady that keeps the glue of the club together. Gitu Sharma, who's here, his birthday's coming up. Jennifer Hendrickson, who's here, his birthday's coming up. Brad Hepp, Dr. Steve Eaker, Harold Hansen, Susan Johnson before she goes to Colorado. Thanks for being here. Happy birthday. Lindsey Smaka, Dr. Sharon Chandler, Mike Martin, and Mike Callis are all celebrating birthdays this month. I hope it's a great year for everybody and they have fun on their birthday like Shelley did.
What about Shelley?
What about Shelley? Do we have any pictures of Shelley? Rotary Anniversaries, Ken Anderson, 23 years, John Cardell, 20, Joe Christensen, 21, one of our new members, Gay Clapp, who's here today, 1 year anniversary, Bjorn Frudenthal, 6 years, Wayne Harmon, 36 years, Robert Hildreth, 36 years. He's a gentleman that coined the phrase, the #1 club of the universe. And to his friends, he's known as HB. You have to ask Jeff O about that. Joel Jennings is such a kind man, 34 years with our club. Charlie McGoldrick, 21. Scott Neal, the guy that runs the city of Edina, along with Jennifer Benarod, 11 years. Jeff O, 19 years. Some people call him the general. Carlin Padiachi, 1 year. Susan Parrott, 23 years. It takes a village to put on a Rotary meeting. And today our greeters are Jeff O and Dr. Sharon Chandler. Our speaker introduction will be handled by Mark Jessen. The guest introductions will be Randy Smasal. Fred Sylvester will be taking pictures for social media posting. Chris Lakowski is filming our our meeting, and Ryan Wilson has graciously helped us out with the Zoom. Please rise for the Invocation, Pledge of Allegiance, and four-way test.
Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, it is good to recognize how different that we are. Our talents, our dreams, our backgrounds, our occupations. And it's good to know that when you created each of us, you broke the mold. No one is exactly like anyone else. Even our thumbprint and our voice track tell us how unique we are. Yet, we thank you that we can make these differences and mobilize them for the good of Rotary and our community. In our differences, we can think the same thoughts and move together toward a common goal. Bless us as we meet together. Thank you for our individuality and also for our common bond. Amen. Amen. The pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Good afternoon. We have a number of guests here today, and there's a rumor that the reason they're here is to celebrate Shelley's birthday. Yay! And as prospective member day, we have a number of guests to introduce. Let's start with Shelley. You have a guest, Shelley.
I do. It's not my birthday anymore, but thank you. My guest is Mark Williams. He's a new Edina Chamber member, and I brought this as his first time checking out our club. He's interested in Rotary.
Thank you for coming, Mark. Michael Tingman has a guest. Tingham.
I've got Julie here. He's a lawyer at my firm. I thought he'd be very interested in the speaker today, so I invited him along, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Mitch, for coming. Skip Thomas has a guest.
Got a longtime Edina resident, Bruce Carlson. He brought us Willard Eichela's program here back a few years ago, and he's in risk management.
Welcome, Bruce. David Klein has a guest.
I'm here for Shelley's birthday. There's a present. He was on the Bloomington School Board. He has Three Rivers Music Academy, and where they teach piano and guitar. And he's a good friend, and I'm glad he's here.
Welcome.
Welcome, Rick. Sylvester Thomas has a guest.
My guest is Shay Fields. He works with me at Cetera Investors. He's one of my newest advisors. Part of his part-time job is he coaches high school basketball. Whoa. And I think he coaches the #1 basketball team in the state, right, Shay? Wow. What's his school? Park Center. Park Center.
Welcome, Shay. Eli Grondike has a guest.
So I got my good friend Eric Baldwin here with us, and he is a salesman from Pella Windows and Doors. So happy to
Welcome, Eric. Katy Campbell has multiple guests to introduce.
I'd like to introduce Ashok Dhariwal. Is the owner of, he's a second-time visitor with us. Yoga Fit Studios owner of 4 in the Minneapolis area and 8 total. You remember Ralphie?
Keep your seats.
Okay, he helped me with the PowerPoint, okay? That wouldn't have happened. Thanks for on me. And I'd like to introduce my niece Erin, first-time visitor. Actually, if I may say, with our son Jack, came as toddlers to a holiday party we had. And now she's a recruiter with Cargill, so happy with that.
Welcome, Katie's guests. And Josh, you have a number of guests to introduce.
I have Stephen Moore, who's with More Awareness Tees, does merchandise and apparel, and this is his second time visiting our club. Who was on the Progressive Black Dinner Night. She is VP of Public Policy for New Way Treatment Centers, and this is your first or second time?
My first.
First time here. Welcome, Amy. Friend of many years, my roll dog, and my long-lost sister, Gloria Howard, formerly of the North Minneapolis Rotary Club, now in the Passport Club, who's working on some great things in 2022.
Thank you all and welcome, and we are sure you're going to have a great meeting and a great time today.
Bill McGreevy, is it true there's still time to sign up for Rotary Bowling this Saturday night at Tuttle's? Think about coming. Paul Moody can figure it out, adding people to the list. They can. It's the biggest social event. It's fun, Sylvester. It is. And guess what, Gitu? We're going to have valuable prizes. Now, they might be a bottle of wine or a six-pack of beer or a dozen Titleist golf balls with Key Cadillac logos on it, but hey, it's going to be fun. If you want to come, well, yeah, people, I lose golf balls. Let Paul Moody or myself or Bill McGreevy know, because Paul is putting the teams together, David. Next Wednesday morning, right here at the Edina Country Club, we're having the Rotary Club of Edina Leadership Series with our very own Jean Morrison. Jean has got an extensive background in human resources, and her topic is going to be resolving conflict during trying times. So thank you, Rob Redding. Thank you, Jean Morrison, for doing this. Please think of coming. I've been to a number of them, as had Fred, and they're fantastic. They take notes. I mean, who knows? Resolving conflict during trying times, maybe it'll help me with my relationship with my wife. I don't know. But please come if you can. Again, it's here next Wednesday. We are so fortunate to have Lindsey Smaka, who's going to speak to us about the Global Scholar Program that she heads up. I had the pleasure of traveling with her in Guatemala, and we had a blast.
Hi, everyone. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lindsey Smaka. I teach science at Edina High School and have been there for about 8 years now. And I also run the Edina Rotary Global Scholar Program that you all fund and support. So I am here to give you an update on that. Also, I'll note that because of this program, I am standing here today as a Rotarian. Also, thanks to Josh Sprague, I'm standing here as a Rotarian. So getting involved in that program introduced me to Rotary, and I'm here because of it. So, wrong way. All right, so a little bit about the program first off. It's a 3-year program, so students typically will enter their sophomore year, and I say it's typically because we're only on year 3, so, but that's what it was designed to do. It can be completed in fewer years. Last year was our inaugural launch year, and we did have 7 seniors graduate, and we're able to do it in 1 year. So, sponsored by us, Morningside, and the Edina Education Fund. The point of the program is to develop global competency skills for post-graduation, and I would also argue for while they're in high school as well. Prepare them for a global career in this interconnected world. So many careers nowadays are international, so that's one of the things we strive to do. Develop understanding for world issues and build bridges across nations and cultures. So because of this program, we've had a lot of connections made around the world from our students and other students and people. Also scholarship opportunities, and they get recognition at graduation. So here's the requirements. I know that's a lot of words up there, but I will kind of hit each point and give you a little bit of an overview. So the first thing that they do is take coursework throughout their 3 years, and they choose a pathway. They choose STEM, humanities, or fine arts. They go above and beyond graduation requirements in that pathway. They choose something that they're passionate about, something that will help them in the long run in terms of their college and post-secondary career goals. They also reach proficiency in a world language, so they either reach the highest level of the world language at the high school, whether that be French, Chinese, ASL, or Spanish, or they already come in with being fluent in another language. So I wanted to design it this way to honor our ML students, which stands for multilingual students. So typically these students are new to the US in some sorts. Some of the students also speak a different language at home, and I honor that as well. And then they get involved in the Rotary. So a lot of students are involved in the Interact Club. They could also do Camp Ryla, Enterprise, or the Ethics Seminar. And once the exchange gets going again, that would count as well. They do a global collaboration experience. So typically this means travel, and that's the way it was designed for. However, obviously the pandemic has put a hinder on that. So we have gotten creative and found a lot of virtual options for students to connect with other students and people around the world. We had some students do Model UN, and that counted as well. They could host an exchange student, so we have some students doing that this year. We do have, Randy, correct me if I'm wrong, 15 exchange students this year at the high school about that. The Rotary exchange would also count, and then virtual exchange. And then they take their capstone course. So their capstone course is either their junior or senior year, kind of whatever fits in their schedule. It's 1 semester. And what they do is they choose a global issue, kind of whatever they are passionate about. They concentrate on a specific country and kind of look at it at that global lens. And then they also take a look at that global issue here in our own backyard and how it affects us locally. So they have their local part of the project and they have their global part of the project. Local part of the project, I encourage them to get out in the community, whether that's interning, volunteering, interviewing people, things like that. In terms of their global, or the global part of it, where they choose a country to focus on, I also encourage them to try to find someone in that country that they can talk to. So sometimes they're able to find someone themselves, or sometimes through my connections I'm able to get that going for them. And then what they do is they tie it to one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Who in here has heard of the SDGs? Okay. So it's a set of 17 goals that the UN put out there in 2010, and by 2030, the goal is to reach all of these 17 goals. They choose one of those goals to focus on good health and well-being, zero hunger, life below water, life below land. There's a bunch of different options. And then they put all of this together and create some sort of product, podcast, article, or video. So here's some statistics for you. Our current numbers. So down at the bottom left, 2021, we graduated 7 students. That was our inaugural year. We did it in the middle of a pandemic, which was great. This year, we now have 23 students on track to graduate, which is awesome. And May, I just looked it up, May 18th, our Rotary meeting is when, 19th, thank you, is when we will do the graduation for those students. Class of 2023, current juniors, there's 42, 30, and 7. These numbers are even fluctuating today. Registration is due today, and I'm getting inquiries from students. So it's really growing, which is great. Students are having a lot of fun with it. And then capstone projects, that was that last requirement I talked to you about. This past fall, we had 8 completed projects, and this spring, I'm working with 12 students on their projects. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of projects for you. That's kind of their overview that they gave. But one example is Julian. He spent a lot of time in Germany. He spent a couple of years in Germany, and so chose to focus on Germany. And he did a podcast. Most students chose to do podcasts, which I was surprised by, but I'm loving listening to all of these podcasts. I'm going to get them out to you somehow so you can listen to the ones that you want to. But he focused on sustainability in airports, and he focused on Munich, Germany, and MSP. Kate Brown, she was here a couple of months ago, but she worked with the Indigenous Food Lab, which if you have not heard of them, they're really cool. They are... The owner, Sean Sherman, he is an Indigenous person who runs the, I'm drawing a blank on the name of the restaurant, but the Indigenous restaurant that's in Northeast Minneapolis. Yes, I'm drawing a blank on it. But she worked with them and focused on eating locally, and her title is Returning to Our Roots. So how we can focus on what we are putting on our table and and it gave it that spin. Nadia, she was one of the students who actually got to travel to South Korea. So in 2019, the high school did an exchange with South Korea. She traveled there from that experience, wanted to focus her project on Seoul, and she looked at waste management. So things that she saw there in terms of how they manage their waste, compared that to here in Minneapolis. So just a couple of accomplishments I wanted to highlight. Last year we had 2 awards. We had the Edina Mayor's Award, which was presented here at one of our Rotary meetings. And then our District Award, Youth Programming, Innovation, and Leadership, which was last summer. We've gone above and beyond enrollment and graduation goals. So our goals were 25 students in 2021, and we had well above that. They've formed many connections in the community. Our students have done things with Global Minnesota, Cargill, Indigenous Food Labs, as I've mentioned, the U of M. And then goals. I want to create a scholarship fund for students, so that global collaboration experience that I talked about. Travel requires money, and the last thing I want is for this program to only be for students who have money and who are capable of doing that. So I want to create a scholarship fund so that any student can join. Incorporate their global collaboration experience in the capstone. Again, once travel gets up and running, I'm going to try to meld those 2 things so that they can see things with their own eyes and incorporate that into the capstone. And then established exchange and learning service learning projects. I'm currently working with Global Minnesota on a potential new exchange program, and I'm designing one myself as well. And I'm also working to incorporate our current international students in the program. And I will also say, one of the accomplishments is that we have reached 102 of these amazing students. We are changing the trajectory of what they are going to do post-graduation. So thank you all for your support in the program. Also a quick plug, I also advise the Interact Club, and Skate to End Polio is Saturday the 19th, so be sure to mark your calendar for that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Lindsey. If Paul Peterson and Rich Melzer could come up, please. We're going to induct our new member, and he's going to say a few words about his advocacy and who he is and things like that.
I met Rich, a couple of years ago now, and I thought immediately about Rich and how perfect he is for this club, and what we stand for is what he stands for. He's so involved in community. He cares about his community. That's what he's all about. And I just want, because we're short on time, I'm going to welcome Rich to the podium.
Super happy to be here. Paul found me right away when I got to the Southdale YMCA, and he's going, "Man, you got to join Rotary." And I'm going, "What do you mean? What's this guy so obsessed about Rotary for?" And I got here, and it showed through. So, Paul, thank you for bringing me on and introducing me to everybody here. It's already had a huge impact in my work, and I've been able to be a part of some things around, my hometown of Minneapolis and North Minneapolis with you all. So that's been great. So, yeah, thanks for that. Appreciate it. Is there a do? Okay, we're golden. Never mind. So, anyways, to the people on Zoom, the camera adds 20 pounds when you're up there, so I just want to get that out of the way. How much time do I have, Mike?
2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes. So, real quick, I grew up in this neighborhood. I'm a product of South Minneapolis, Southwest Minneapolis. I went to Washburn High School. I grew up playing, basketball and football. I'm a little disappointed, Frank, the Twins never recruited me when I was younger, but I'll get you on the back end of that. Fast forward, I ended up going to college over in River Falls. I know we have some Wisconsin System alumni here, right? And I was lucky enough to find my way into the world of professional sports at some point. I wasn't very good, but somehow I got my foot in the door and got to play in the NBA and travel the world. But ultimately that led me to a world of philanthropy. I realized as I was an athlete, I was having the opportunity to do a lot of speaking engagements, a ton of community events, and those were things I really gravitated to. which got me to the YMCA of the Twin Cities, where I started, as a sports director, mentoring young people. I've always been, accused of really liking kids, but the truth is they drive me nuts. But I do enjoy working with young people. You all know what I'm talking about. So, and then fast forward to today, I've recently accepted the opportunity to become the CEO of YouthLink, which is a children's charity in the Twin Cities that does a lot of meaningful work. Thank you. And so I really get to continue to develop that muscle working with young people, providing networking and resources for the children that we serve. And it'll be my life's work. And to be here and to be a part of such a meaningful group that has tentacles and unique places that can help and support, I'm just truly grateful. And Paul, really, thanks again for bringing me on, man. You won't be disappointed. So.
The man that needs no introduction, Mr. Mark Jessen, who owns Jessen Press. But in the spirit of you speaking, Frank, I thought we should go ahead and show a picture of Mark throwing out the ball at a Twins game. I mean, this guy has got great baseball acumen right over the plate. Oh! Maybe not.
I'm shocked that that video is here. I can't imagine where you got it from, Michael. All right. Unlike Rich or Frank, whenever I have public speaking involved, the request comes in to keep it short. And in the interest of time, I will do that. I've been corresponding back and forth with Frank this week in preparation for his talk today, and we're very honored to be able to introduce him. I can't even go through it because I want to get him up here so he can tell his story. It is extensive, the list of accomplishments. I think the best way to describe it is think of Jeff O's list of accomplishments. This is the other end of the spectrum. So in that regard, Frank, I just want to have you come up and join us today, and you can share your story. Ladies and gentlemen, Frank White.
Well, it's really a pleasure to be here. I'm honored, and thanks much. So I got to get a couple plugs in though. So Rich, before he tells me, well, we sat next to each other, and I know I'm a mentor to your grandson Royce, and so I'm like, oh wow, and then also to my son-in-law Quentin, and that's excellent, and then Paul. I know the Peterson family. When I was the Park and Rec director for Richfield, we hired the Peterson family for a concert. And since then, every time I see Patty, I always go up and say hi. So that's a nice connection also. And then for you Wisconsin alumni, my granddaughter Savannah, her senior year at De La Salle this year, she is committed to a full ride to play basketball at Wisconsin. And I was going to wear my cap with the big white W on it, but I didn't want to offend some of you of them. but I am a U of M alumni. And Ben should be Coach of the Year. So now, the other thing I got to tell you is, Mike, man, I've switched Cadillac dealers some time ago, about 6 cars ago. And I'm extremely happy. So the best place is Key Cadillac. Now, I hope that gets me a better deal next time. So
you'd be wrong about that.
High school basketball coaches. He was probably a player when I reffed. And Rich, you didn't say anything about if I worked any of your games, So I don't know if you yelled at me or not. So we got that done. And then finally, yo soy Mexicano, man. So I want you to know that, although I don't speak much Spanish. And then I get to sit next to Mr. Oliva here. And Tony is, man, he's like a special friend. And we mentioned about Julio Becerra, who is also a good friend. And quickly, I'll just say Buck O'Neill goes in, Minnie Minoso goes in, Tony goes in, Cott goes in. And for some of you that don't know, Bud Fowler also has a Minnesota connection, and he goes in. He played for a team in Stillwater, so there's another Minnesota connection. So as I get started here, how many of you have heard of the Yancey family? From Edina. Absolutely wonderful. So as I grew up, there's a certain impression you get of Edina, and then when you work in Richfield, you get another impression of Edina. So again, I've had all of these visions, and then I come to this Rotary connection here, and I'm really impressed with the amount of pepper in with the salt. My daughter said, "Don't do that, Dad." So let me try to get started here on I hope I can do this. Mike, help me. Which button do I advance?
That button right there.
That advances?
Yep. That advances.
Okay. So I'll quickly try to do this, and I will stay afterwards if anybody has more questions or whatever wants to talk. So this is the cover of my book, and I'm really excited about this. I don't consider myself a writer. I consider myself a storyteller. And I think that's a little bit different. I was one of those kids in school. I hated to write. When I went to the U of M and I had to write, I hated to write. I hated to read. When I worked for the city of Richfield and I had to put together projects to sell an idea or evaluate an idea, I hated to write. So how did I ever write a book? I just took the story out of my head and put it on paper. So here is the cover. I didn't design this. I'll show you a picture here later that this is the last three gentlemen on a team photo, and I'll tell you about each of those as I go through that. So here's a photo of six guys, and this is when I first became aware of my father playing with Negro League teams as they used to barnstorm through St. Paul, Minneapolis. So this photo includes, in the back row, is a guy named Leroy Hardiman, my father. On the far right, on my father's left, is W. Harry Davis from Minneapolis. Hopefully you all know who he is. Jim Griffin was the deputy commissioner, police officer in St. Paul. Red Evans is the gentleman in the middle, and then Larry Bubba Brown is the other guy on your right in the front row. This was the first time I'm sitting there listening at this event at the History Center, and they're talking about the Negro Leagues, and then there's a gentleman named Jim Robinson who passed away last year, who was a friend and a great mentor, said to me, your dad used to play with those Negro League teams. And I said, who are you talking about? And he said, your dad. So I'm like, this is too much. So on the way home, I asked my dad, I said, Dad, why didn't you ever tell me about playing with these Negro League teams? He said, it wasn't important. The humbleness of my father. Here's a photo. It might be hard to see. In the back row in the middle is a gentleman named William Frank Billy Williams, an outstanding athlete that ended up playing. He graduated from Mechanic Arts High School in about 1898 or something like that. So some of you are obviously too young to know that. But this is one of the research things that I've been able to uncover. This guy was a great athlete. In 1904, when segregated baseball was happening across the country, Billy gets offered to play with the Baltimore Orioles. So they send him a letter and said, tell us your lowest terms that you would play for. But if you accept, you will have to say you're an Indian. Billy Williams said, thank you so much, but his pride was that he was proud of who he was because of his parents, and said that won't work. In the same year, he goes to work as an assistant to the newly elected governor, Johnson. And then he spends, as my my note has up there, 52 years working for 14 consecutive governors. I have pending an exhibit and display that's supposed to be at the state capitol, but for 2 years, COVID has kind of put it really on a delay. But in doing that, I found out from one of the gentlemen there that Billy Williams was the longest, and I'll use the word tenured, but in terms of amount of time, not tenured, but the longest tenured employee in state capitol history. African American, and nobody knows about that. So I'm working with the Capitol again. I want people to know that history. Not only was he a great athlete, and in his time, he was one of the best players in Minnesota, without a doubt. There's a lot of information about him. So here is the St. Paul Colored Gophers, and a team that played from 1907, 1910. Phil Reed was the owner. He is the gentleman in the middle there with the derby, or I don't know what you call those things. I'll say a derby, but formed this team, and he wanted to have the best team that money could buy. And so he sent a gentleman, another great ball player named Walter Ball, to Chicago to recruit the best team. And he did that. And all of the players in 1907 on his team were from Chicago, which is interesting. So a side note to that, it's almost like Comiskey taking the Saints to Chicago, and they became the Chicago White Sox, right? So the combined winning record of the St. Paul Colored Gophers, I got to look at my notes here, because I don't keep all of this in my head. But over a 4-year period of time, their record was 380, 89, and 2 ties for a winning percentage of 810. 810, and they took on all comers, even at the time the Saints and the Millers, and usually split with them in ball games, and the Saints and the Millers were professional teams. This team also was paid, and they were considered professional, and they played all over the 5-state area. Last year, we put a headstone on Phil Reed's grave in Oakland Cemetery in St. Paul because it was without one. So I appreciate the St. Paul Saints on that. Here's an ad for Uptown Sanitary Shop in St. Paul. You can't see it, but I think it's like at 322 Wabasha Street. I think that's what that says down there. And it was owned by a gentleman named Owen Howe. At the time, Owen Howe also, in addition to owning this, he was the publisher of the Northwest Bulletin newspaper. The interesting thing is that this business was downtown St. Paul. A lot of people, if you're familiar with the word Rondo neighborhood, all right, so everybody has that vision. But when African American people first came to St. Paul, many of them lived in the downtown area, which when you think about it made sense. The train station was there, people got off the boats, so they lived more downtown, and there were an awful lot of black businesses in downtown. The Rondo neighborhood, which I'm a part of, came later and then kind of disappeared. So here's a photo of 1923, the Uptown Sanitary Shop team. And if you look at the players on the far right, that became the cover. That was decided by the editor of Minnesota History Press, and it wasn't me. So I really liked that they selected that. This photo I had seen, and in the back, kind of in the center, you can identify, if you're familiar with him, Bobby Marshall. He usually stands out pretty much, outstanding athlete. They say he's the first black professional football player. And so he's easily identifiable in a lot of these old photos. But in my research, so there's Bobby. This is John Davis, who his son actually gave me information, and I was able to identify him. This guy is Dennis Ware. George White, who my father would later play for. He's not a relative. This guy is Lewis House. Jimmy Lee Recreation Center in St. Paul. That's Jimmy Lee. The guy on the end, I took this copy and didn't have the arrow on it, but the guy on the end with his arms like this, his name is Samuel Stevens. Outstanding player at Mechanic Arts High School in the 20s, which if you were on a high school baseball team in the cities in the 20s, said you had to be a special player because we're talking about segregated baseball. After he left Mechanic Arts, he went on to play at Hamline University and was a star. And in one of the games that I have a record on, he beat the Gophers. He would graduate from the University of Minnesota as a pharmacist, and then he would move to Chicago and open up a pharmacy with his brother. I was still trying to connect to see if he played baseball in Chicago, because for black baseball, Chicago was one of the hubs in the country. But I can't find that. He became a family man, so maybe he didn't play baseball. This is a score sheet. I met a gentleman in Burnsville after one of the presentations I did. He came up to me and he took out this scorebook, broadcloth on it, hard, and he opened it up and he said, "Is this your father's name? If you look at the batting order, it says White is like 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th player there." And I said, "Well, when is this from?" I got really excited. And if you look up in the corner, and I think this game was from 1927, I think it says. So I looked at it and I went, oh, my dad wasn't born until 28, so it couldn't be my dad. But then I looked at the names and I recognized Do Love. That name Lee, that's Jimmy Lee. And then the White is actually George White, who I pointed to in the photo. So this was very special. So I talked to this gentleman and I said, wow, afterwards I said, can we talk sometime? So he invited me to his house. He lives in Lakeville down by Buck Hill. So when I drove up and I went inside, as he opened the door, he was holding a black baseball bat. And I was like, I didn't know how to take that, right? So he said, this is my father's bat from the 20s. So that scorebook was his father's scorebook, and his father's team was Oxborough Heath, whatever, which was in Bloomington, right? The Oxborough neighborhood there, and they had that team. So it was like, wow, isn't that special? So in my book, in that scorebook, which I've copied into my book, there were 7 games where his father team played against a team from St. Paul or one from Minneapolis, an all-black baseball team. So what a connection. And if you think back to that time, I always wonder, how long did it take to get someplace? Obviously, there weren't interstates and that stuff. Sometimes people took the train because the Dan Patch line kind of went down that way and that type of thing. Some of you young people, this lady's looking at me like, Dan Patch, what is that? So again, each of these documents, I kind of wish I had the scorebook. He actually let me have it. I had it for over a year. And then I thought, I got to get this back to him because he's going to think I'm stealing it. And I put it in my trunk one day and went to the car wash, and I thought, I better take it out, took it in the house. And then I called him and I got back and I said, hey, Lyle, I got to get this to her. He said, oh, don't worry about it. I know you'll get it to me. So I went looking for it. I went to the car and opened up my trunk, and there was no scorebook. I panicked, but I had forgot that I had taken it and put it in the house. So eventually I made a point to get it to him because I didn't want it to be damaged or lose it or anything like that, because it was a treasure for him because it was his father's scorebook. This is the old Phyllis Wheatley neighborhood house in North Minneapolis. On that second floor up there, you would see that There were like 18 sleeping rooms up there. And the reason being, when they opened it up, was that during this time, if you were black, you couldn't stay in a hotel in downtown Minneapolis or St. Paul. So when entertainers or politicians, special individuals came to Minneapolis, they went to Phyllis Wheatley and stayed in those sleeping rooms. In addition to, it was a social place. They had a gym and music and all of those kinds of things related to social and recreational needs for African American people. Eventually, I used to go over there, and our group of St. Paul guys used to go over there, and we used to shoot them out of the gym. But anyway, Johnny Walton, if you look at the years there, 35, 36, 37, 38. At Cretin High School, the first black player to be at Cretin High School, and would go on to play with the Chicago American Giants in the Negro League, and eventually he moved to California. And so I tried to go through this quick. I've got a couple more slides, but I'm going to have to stop here because I'm getting the hook. Or I'm sorry, I'm getting the notice, and I want to respect that for your meeting. So if you have any questions, is that yes?
Yeah, or if you want to go through a couple, if you just have a couple more slides.
Let me see what I've got here. Let me do this last one. Toni Stone, first woman to play in the Negro Leagues. Grew up in St. Paul. Was born in West Virginia. If you look at this lineup, I think in this game they played Connorsville. I think if you can see the top of the lineup, I think the player's name is Pafko. Can you see? Is anybody sitting close there? Yes, Pafko. So Andy Pafko. So I just quickly share this. Andy Pafko. At the same time, Toni Stone, right in this article, talked about her being 16 or 17, and she was playing on an all-men's team. Andy Pafko was also the same age. Andy Pafko would be drafted by the Cubs or signed by the Cubs to play, and then eventually would end up playing for the Dodgers. On the day the shot heard around the world, October 3rd, 1951, the Giants beat the Dodgers. The left fielder was Andy Pafko. But that date also is Dave Winfield's birthday. So I'll stop there, and because I want to respect time, and if anybody has questions, I would surely be willing to. Yeah, and I can stay afterwards also and talk to individuals. I did bring my book. The book costs $95. I'm the Edina prices. I'm sorry, it's $20. So, but I will be around.
This is for you, and I have a little something to say.
Okay, all right.
Just stay right up here.
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much, Frank. Rotary is a global network of 1.2 million neighbors and friends and leaders and problem solvers who see the world where people unite to take action to create lasting change across the globe and in our communities and in ourselves. From literacy and peace to water and health, Rotarians are always working to better our world, and we stay committed to the end. In honor of your presentation, we will make a donation to My Very Own Bed, a local nonprofit that provides new beds to children moving into stable housing. My Very Own Bed gives a new bed, a set of sheets, blanket, pillow, mattress pad, stuffed animal, and a book to children who might otherwise go without. Thank you so much, Frank.
Wow. Thank you. If I could quickly say, I mentioned the Yancey family earlier. For any of you that didn't raise your hand, I encourage you to go Google Yancey family, Edina, Minnesota, and it'll give you another piece of history about Edina that you didn't know. So,
Frank, thank you so much, and I so apologize that We had to cut you short a little bit. And thank you for agreeing to stay afterwards. Josh Bragg just gave me this that said on December 16th, the Major League said they will recognize the 1920 to 48 records of the Negro Leagues as Major League records, on par with those of the National American League. How wonderful is that? We have things coming up. We have bowling. We have a great meeting next week with Katy Simpson, who's going to speak about leadership and diversity. And they say baseball, it said, is only a game. True. And the Grand Canyon is only a hole in Arizona. Meeting adjourned.